everybody know that this is an MS Conversations Now, MS Patients Voices program, and I am Stuart Schlossman, president and founder of MS Views the News, and our guest today is Kathy Chester. And Kathy Chester is from Michigan, and Kathy's got a podcast of her own, which we'll talk about in a minute, and she's got her website is MS Disrupted. As you can see, it's right there. She talks about moving it and losing it, or move it or lose it, and we'll go forward from there. So let me just give you a little bit about Kathy. Kathy Chester was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and rheumatoid arthritis nearly 25 years ago. Since her diagnosis, she has dedicated her life to educating herself and others about autoimmune health and instructing them on how to live a healthy, well-balanced lifestyle. Over the years, Kathy has built MS Disrupted, a helpful community where she offers support and services and resources to people who want to take steps to improve their health. This includes a one-on-one personal training, healthy eating plans, and group fitness Zoom classes. Kathy is living proof of how important movement is, focused on exercise and mobility, and showing how extremely important all of this is, especially for the autoimmune community. Kathy also hosts a podcast called Move It or Lose It that focuses on topics important to those with multiple sclerosis and other autoimmune diseases. Kathy's a certified personal trainer and group fitness trainer and MS and autoimmune trainer. Wow, that's a lot. She has formulated workouts that offer maximum results, which are tailored to individuals with autoimmune diseases. Let me ask you, though, where does it go from there? I mean, what about other illnesses? Can't these same exercises and these fitness routines work for anybody?
Absolutely. There are so many times, like one of the patients that I'm working with right now is has had a stroke, brain injuries, head traumas, Alzheimer's. So often I'll find something that worked with a stroke victim, and then it'll click music, rhythm, and I'll then all of a sudden put that with a client that has Alzheimer's. And the same thing, if I can get with like a rhythm or a beat or something, then all of a sudden you can see they begin to relax. And then all of a sudden you begin to find that ability to work with them a little bit easier. So you're absolutely right. It goes on and on. There's similarities that you wouldn't believe with all of us.
I'm sure. And I could have gone on and on and on about the preview that I wanted to do for you, but my throat is getting a little hoarse and I wanted to stop. I wanted to stop before I start neighing. Okay, yeah. You got it. All right. So where in Michigan are you?
We are in Royal Oak, Michigan.
Can you spell that out? Because I'm still not getting it.
So
I got the Royal part.
Royal and then oak. We have big oak trees.
There we
so
go.
That's
gotcha.
why.
Gotcha.
So it's known for our giant, gorgeous trees.
Awesome. Thank you. And all right. So let's go forward a little bit. Can you please tell us what autoimmune health is?
Yeah. So basically, it's all the different autoimmune diseases. So to try to just say that I'm just working with multiple sclerosis would be silly, because for one, I've got, as we know, I've got MS, rheumatoid, epilepsy. So when clients started to come to me, they had different autoimmune diseases. And as I was working and going through them, I'm like, just to call this MS wouldn't be fair. So then we really had to start learning and working through the different autoimmune diseases. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that it's just not one in a box. There's so many of them.
Okay, gotcha. How long has it been since you were originally diagnosed with multiple sclerosis? And I know that you were diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, but which came first? Which diagnosis was first?
Rheumatoid, and he actually missed the MS. So rheumatoid, I was very young, and it was just in my knuckles. And then he had said to me, go ahead and get a MRI, go see a neurologist when you think about it. And of course, I didn't want to do that, and wasn't honest about some of the other symptoms until I lost eyesight in my right eye a few years later. And then I thought, probably something I need to get checked out. So then came the MS diagnosis.
Okay, so what were your symptoms of MS to make you think that you had it at even a younger age?
I would say, looking back, like we all can say, right? I can say, looking back, probably in high school, I had symptoms with concentration, focus, And no, Stuart, it wasn't just because I was cheerleading and thinking about the football players. I literally had a hard time focusing with tests and things like that, where I'd be prepared, ready to go, sit there, and just it wasn't there. So I can think back to those problems. But when I was diagnosed with the rheumatoid, things didn't make sense. Like I had numbing from my shins down. I had numb hands, the numb fingers. And then finally, when the optic neuritis came and I couldn't see out of my right eye, and it's always on a holiday. So it was Mother's Day, woke up, my right eye completely blind, and then went to the ophthalmologist. And he's actually the one who diagnosed me and said, "You're going to go see my best friend. Let's go. You're going to the hospital." And then that started the MRI and all the fun. And they had already saw at least 30 lesions when they did the MRI.
Wow. That's a lot of lesions.
I know.
I didn't know anybody could have that many, but that's
Me
okay.
neither. I was like, what? So.
Right. So does this mean that you were not a cheerleader among all those football players?
I was the cheerleader, yes.
Okay. All right. So going forward, what was your life like before MS diagnosis, and how did you handle being told that you had MS?
Well, I was always, I was a cheerleader. I was always very social. I wanted to play and be involved in every sport. There was just a lot of, everything was open. And when you're young, you think you can do everything. You're invincible. I wanted to work with special ed kids is what my dream was. So there were just a lot of things that were open, exciting things I wanted to do. And now my grandfather had multiple sclerosis, and so did my aunt, but I didn't really understand what it was. So that was prior to having it. And so I really never thought about it. I didn't really understand what it was.
So at what age did you realize that something was wrong with your relatives? And did you actually see them with physical difficulties?
My grandfather, I did not know he had multiple sclerosis till after he passed away. The many things I saw with him, they always had some weird response to what it was that never really made sense. My aunt was younger, so with her, she was in Canada. So back then, it took a year just to get an MRI. Her symptoms were very similar to mine. So I find that now looking back at the history, mine is a lot on my left side. Hers were on the left side, the optic neuritis. A lot of the things were very similar. Now, unfortunately, she was a smoker. She didn't exercise like I did, so she went down fast, very fast. Yep. And so I can see some of the similarities, but a lot of difference as well.
Okay, thank you for that. When you were diagnosed, how did you find the courage, or how comfortable or not were you with telling family and friends what was happening with you?
Well, I think, and you'll remember this, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I didn't really understand what it was that I had. I had to do a lot of research, and it was different than it is now. We didn't have all the things we do now. We didn't have Instagram and all the stuff, Facebook, where we could chat together and talk about our symptoms. You didn't talk about it. You didn't talk about it, and you didn't tell your boss for fear of losing your job, losing your children. It was a scary time. There were 2 different disease, DMTs that were out. And back then you got a handicap sticker. You were told rest, rest, rest. You may be on to go on a stroll later, maybe a bike ride. And so that just didn't sit well with me, Stuart. I felt like I could do more. Like there's something missing. I watched my grandfather pass away. I watched my aunt do all of this and sit down and lay down, and there was no activity. And it didn't make sense to me with my body and what I understood. I needed to move my body so it wouldn't atrophy. So I started off doing a couple things, and I actually started running. I just started thinking I could run the disease out. In my young age, that's what I was going to do. Keep running till it went away.
Okay, so I don't think that we heard, how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was in my mid 20s when all of it came together, when the rheumatoid and the MS all finally connected.
But you were diagnosed with, you said RA first, and then the MS.
So
Okay.
I was about 27.
I know we're older and it's hard to remember,
It
but
is.
that's why I was trying to bring that out of you, okay?
It is so
Listen,
true. It gets tricky. It's like,
when you were diagnosed, was it a local neurologist or was it somebody else?
so but then it was just a local neurologist.
Okay. And is that person still your neurologist?
No,
Okay.
no.
What did you, why did you leave your original neurologist?
So I went to now you guys, if you were diagnosed back then, you'll remember the very exciting support groups. My first support group was in literally a wheelchair scooter shop. And I am, my mid 20s, and I'm looking and I'm just thinking, this has got to be the most terrifying thing I've ever done. So all of that to say, the best news out of that, this younger, he was probably 20, kind of waved at me and took me out and said, have you ever heard of Dr. Howard Rossman? Never heard of him. So he said he's building a new facility for, for MS, just a neurologist. I was like, he's like, I'm not sure if he's taking new patients. Got in, loved him. He passed away about 6 years ago. Was heartbreaking, but he was an amazing neurologist, absolutely amazing. And he was my neurologist from then until he passed away.
Right. Hey, I totally understand that first support group thing. All right. I mean, really, really, when you said it, it was like, wow, I just got a flashback to seeing what I walked in on. And I just said, this is, I got to go find another group somewhere. This is too old for me and too much of one thing happening, people complaining. And I don't want that.
Yeah.
All right. So going on to the next thing. So back to when you were discussing things with your family and friends, who did you tell first?
Well, my husband, and then
Oh,
the kids, yeah, he needed to know. And then the kids, I would say my parents, and then the kids who didn't really understand. They were so young, they didn't understand what I had. And then it was some family and friends, and then we just kind of kept it to ourselves until we had a better understanding of what it was we were up against.
right. Now, how long was it until your job found out about it?
Ooh. So at that point, I was actually, I was doing corporate travel. And
Okay,
so then I didn't say a word.
sure.
So
Okay,
that
gotcha.
wasn't something I discussed with them.
Right. Now, obviously, well, I don't know, maybe you did. Did you have children yet?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay, and how did the multiple sclerosis affect your family life?
Um, different. I think in the beginning, it not as much for them because they didn't know anything about it. And I was able to really hide. I was able to keep my energy, hadn't taken a huge dump yet. It hadn't really gone down as much. If people could explain me, they would always say the MS kind of made you normal. You were like an Energizer bunny that never stopped. So the MS kind of made you to a level that we could actually have a conversation with you and you'd have to stop for 5 minutes. So I would say that it just kind of slowed me down enough to kind of see things and stop for a minute.
Right. Now, how old was your youngest at the time of your diagnosis?
You are really making me go back, aren't you?
Yes.
I would say my youngest was 3.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So back to that again, if you were very symptomatic, what was done for your children?
So when I did, my symptoms became rougher. And my doctor at the time, Dr. Rossman, put me on chemo for it. So when I was doing the chemo, that was probably the roughest. That's probably when the kids really understood, okay, mom's sick. This is something that mom doesn't lay down on the couch ever during the day. Now mom's on the couch during the day. Something's really wrong. So I would say back then, that was probably the beginning for them of the scariest time, that they realized that mom's not okay.
And how long did that last for?
That was probably close to a year where I really was not okay.
Okay. Did you get help from your family, your husband, from parents, anybody, sisters, brothers?
Bit.
I don't know what you have.
I have one brother. A little bit of help, not a ton. Because then again, remember, a lot of people didn't know. So
True.
A little bit of help.
Okay. So you had help though with getting the kids off to nursery school or school,
yeah, exactly.
and et cetera. Okay, that's good to know. All right. How did the MS affect? Well, we already spoke about how the MS affected your employment, but we didn't speak about when you're symptomatic, how it affected your employment.
I would say, so fast forward, now we're at like 9/11. And so at that point, I'm home with my kids now. And when 9/11 happened, corporate travel just wasn't a thing. And at that point, I was already teaching boot camps and things like that. So I was doing that all the way through. That became very fascinating to me. I really enjoyed that. My husband at the time also became a pastor. So during this, I was doing a lot more pastor's wife job kind of things. So it didn't affect my job in the sense that people would notice. As far as exercise, that was such a big part of my life that no one noticed that as well. I mean, I was still, Stuart, running. At that point, I was getting up to running my first half marathon. So that was the goal that I really wanted to do. Not really understanding that people with MS didn't always do that. It was just something I wanted to do.
So what did you call yourself as a runner and being a pastor's wife? There's got to be a trick name for that, right?
We'll have to come up with it because no one, I don't know.
Faster than the devil.
Yeah. I like it.
All right. What do I have for you? So next thing. Now we're going to get into your fitness, all right? So what got you into the fitness industry?
I just always loved it. I love sports. I loved coaching. I coached all my kids' sports. And then after that, I would literally, when I worked in travel, I would have a schedule for all of my coworkers. This day you're working out with me. This day you're working out with me. And so then it went from there to teaching boot camps to going into some similar studios. I never liked the big box gym kind of idea. I liked the studios where it was more training, you're with the individuals, that kind of stuff. And then it went from, training to managing to opening up different studios. And then it was more, when I did become more comfortable sharing about my the MS and the rheumatoid, then it became something more open where family members of different people would come and say, would you be willing to do some of the things that I was doing for my own self? Would you be willing to help this person out? So that became something that was very curious to me. How would I do this in a world that wasn't even thought of yet in the early 2000s, even 2005? So that became something that I was very, very interested in.
Okay, so basically that's when you got involved with working with patients who had autoimmune illnesses.
Yeah.
But again, what about the patients that don't have autoimmune? What if they had something else? What if they just had an orthopedic problem? Were you able to work with them as well?
Yeah, for sure. So they taught you that in like special population, and you go for your different classes and you'd learn that kind of stuff. And not that's still interesting to me. I still love that. But any challenge is interesting. I find doing any of that interesting. I love working with people, and I love working with mobility issues. And I love working with a goal with someone's physical body when it comes to, I don't feel like I can do this. Well, let's work with it. Let's see what we can do. So any of those things are very, very exciting for me. When people dream of Sundays, ice cream Sundays, I dream of ways that I can make the body move. I might be kind of odd.
You could be.
Could be.
So what did you find? Did you find it difficult training clients that struggle with some of the same diseases that you have, whether it be RA or or multiple sclerosis, and you mentioned something else. I think it was epilepsy.
I get asked that a lot, Stuart, honestly, and I don't. I think it's because you don't know till you know, right? And I think that when you have it, it's a different empathy than when you don't. When you don't, it's kind of mechanical. You're teaching it, and you may care, but you don't get it. Where I feel like sometimes when I'm with people that have one of the things, then I'm able to say, you know what? Like, let's say I'm with you, Stuart, and I'm seeing that you're anxious. And I can say, you know what? We're not going to connect any muscle, no brain to muscle, nothing right now. So right now, let's take a minute and let's just breathe for a minute. Let's just do 2 minutes of breathing and let's calm you down. So I think it's because we get it. We know the look. We get it because we know it. So I can't say at any time I get fearful of it because I know my body and I know that it's going to do what it's going to do. And I know the defenses that I have in what I eat and the movement I do, and anything else I have no control over.
Sure. Odd that you're saying that. Well, not odd that you're saying that. It's good that you're saying that about people recognizing, because somebody said to me earlier today, I saw the clip that you put on that you did something like 6, 7, 8 years ago of myself. And aside from the fact that I had more hair and it was darker, okay, but they said that, my voice was clear, crystal clear. And, why is it so raspy right now? I said, well, that's one of my symptoms. Right. And they said, well, don't other people have a problem with that? And I said, not if they have MS. Everybody understands it. And they also understand if I'm looking tired or if my voice isn't coming out correctly, and nobody says anything about it. So yes, we recognize each other and what we're going through, and nobody questions that at all. But yes, we can hear it. We can hear and we can see and we can help maybe somebody that we know is just new to a new thing, like a symptom happening.
Yeah.
What is your background and your training? Can you tell us about that, please?
Sure. So it started with AFA, and now AFA has combined with some other groups too. And then you can go into different ones to get your CUs, to go ahead and go with different companies to go with. A lot of times as well, Stuart, when you go with the smaller studios, they will also have someone there that will also help you out with different, they will also do different classes with you that will do that. So the smaller ones can also help you get certified in different areas. So that's like, for example, I'm going through another one to get certified to help with cancer patients that have gone past rehabilitation. So let's say they've already gone through physical therapy. Now they're wanting to get exercise. So then I'm going to go through that, and then I'll be certified to help with that. So it's just going through those.
What do you do when a person who's working with you, you know that they're having physical challenges, and it seems that with each movement, it's just getting harder to do?
In like every time we meet, or just that specific time?
Every time that you're now meeting with the person, that you're seeing that maybe a person is having a relapse of something, maybe their disease is worsening, for whichever it might be. Do you recognize that, and do you bring that up to the person's attention?
Yes, for sure. We'll talk about it, and I'll just ask them, because it is very conversational. You develop obviously a relationship with those people. And I'll just say something like, I'm talking to you, like, Stuart, I'm seeing some things like we're going backwards a little bit. Tell me how you're feeling. How are you feeling? What symptoms are you feeling? Anything going on personally that you want to share with me that we can talk about? And if they are feeling like, whether it's a pseudo relapse or something like that, we may take it down a little bit, where we do more stretching in the time we're together and less exercise stuff, so that that's open, so that they don't feel like we have to do more, and maybe take it down a little bit less, so that we're doing some more. We're still moving the body, but in a different way.
Thank you for that. Have you had to modify your personal workouts in response to, any of your diseases?
Sure. Like, for example, last year, out of nowhere, I've had to switch medications. I'm on Ocrevus. It doesn't do as well for me as Tysabri did. So Ocrevus, I'm noticing a little bit of drop foot. Well, practice what you preach, right? So I'm practicing my own drop foot exercises again. So I ran 2 miles the other day. So it's been helping. So absolutely, I practice, and I always tell the clients that too, that I've been doing this. I've been working on this one, so that they know that I'm working with these as well.
Okay, so you just brought up something that I could go off track for a moment and say, what do you do for your foot drop? Tell us what you do.
So for my foot drop, I do a lot of like, I'll put my foot up. I wish I could show you. I put my foot up on like a block and I'll bring it down. So all of my foot drop is in the very front of my foot.
Right.
So I'll feel it there. So I love how all the this one is a joke to me. All of the covered AFOs are always the one that fit in the back where the foot drop isn't really there. I'm like, okay. The ones that are not covered are the ones where the foot drop really actually hits you. So a lot of my exercise will be in the front. So it's like moving up, moving down, side to side, and then coming like on the curve from outside and pushing down and pushing up, making sure that those muscles, I'm not losing the ability for those muscles. Because those muscles, we think about it when you're moving around, you're not really pushing those muscles. And those muscles, I notice a lot, if I'm not using them, we lose them. So the muscle is starting to atrophy. And that's what I'm noticing. They're getting tired. And so as I work them and use them like I would if I'm doing curls, I'm working my biceps or my triceps, right? We notice that if we're in the gym and our biceps aren't there, but we don't notice if our foot's starting to drop. So I do those things.
Right. Now you brought up something else. So now you're talking about the exercises for your biceps, triceps, and et cetera. Are you using actual free weights or are you using bands?
Both. So if I have a client that is unable to grasp the weights, then we use bands. Now, let's say the client is starting to get stronger and they want to use some weights and free weights. So I'll use some dumbbells. So now I'm like, okay, let's start using dumbbells. So then they start to use that and they notice, look, I'm starting to get more coordinated. So one of my big rules of thumb is we don't go with a stronger arm. So I notice, not sure if you can see me all together, but so let's say we're going to do a press. Okay. So you're going to do it with me, Stuart? Okay. So we're going to do a press. So let's say our weaker arm is here and our stronger arm is going to want to go up fast. So I'm going to take you down and say, Stuart, let's lead with the weaker arm. So let's go up together, even though this arm wants to shoot up, and we're going to go with the weaker arm and then come down. Okay.
Okay.
So that they're not, so this arm's already strong. We don't need to keep pumping this arm. We want them to get stronger together. We want the weaker arm to have a chance. So those are some things that we'll do together.
Okay. That sounds great. Are you MS certified?
I am in the middle of, well, that's a long story, but yes.
Okay. And
I'm getting a different one.
And before I continue on about the exercises, do you find that the exercises are helping to control the symptoms?
Yes. When, Stuart, this is the big one. I can tell because I'm with them so often, when they're off focus, not at all. Not at all.
What do you mean? Say that again.
So if I'm working with you, okay, again, we're going to do a practice drill. Sure. I'm working with you and I'm noticing that you're focusing on like what's going on next, what you have coming in 10 minutes, but your mind's not on the muscle group that we're doing right now. We're about to do an assisted squat, but you're nowhere around. Your mind is on what happened last night, what's going on with the kids, your wife. So I need to reel it back in. So I need you to focus now on what we're going to do. Because if we're not, then nothing's happening.
So how do you get a person to do that?
I say, now, hold on, let's think about it. So what's your why?
What's my why?
What's your why and what are we doing this for?
To better coordination and strength.
So then let's think about that and put your mind in your legs right now, because that's what we're doing. And let's go ahead and begin. I don't want you to think about what's going on outside of here, because that'll be there when we're done. but I
Well, then
want you to
you need
focus.
to have me leave my cell phone at the door.
Exactly. I
I have to,
collect
I have to
those.
check in my cell phone. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So I understand all that. How though, if you know that a person is like weak in both arms, how can they possibly push up on one before the other? Well, let's put it like this. What kind of testing do you do with a person first to find out where they really need more help?
So when we first meet, so let's say we met for the first time. So I'm going to ask you, Stuart, tell me about your MS. Tell me where you feel the weakest, the strongest, where the struggles are. So then I'm writing down stuff and I'm getting to know you, getting to know where your biggest struggles are with MS. So then let's say weights, bands even are too tough. So then we won't use any weights or bands. We're just going to use our arms and we're going to do things
Or
that we're starting to do movement without using weights, bands, anything yet. And then we'll work our way up to bands. I think the biggest excitement is one of my clients, secondary progressive, and he called me California. I'm on Michigan time, not the same time, really late for me, but wanted me to know that he stood in the shower for the first time. He said, I wanted to try it and I did it. And so I had to call you. I'm like, thank you. This was worth being woken up. So it's just those things that, this isn't about, you don't get a lot of money. This isn't about money. This is not, I owned a gym. That's where you made money. But it's about how do you put money to that? It was just sobbing that this happened. It's just an amazing, it's amazing thing that you get to be a part of.
do your clients also use other modalities of exercise, such as Pilates or yoga? And do you recommend to people to use these forms of exercise?
Oh, for sure. I believe 100% that if someone can do Pilates or yoga, offset it, it's so complementary to what we do. So even though I stretch with each client before and after, and the Zooms that I do are the Zooms, so Zoom personal training, and then there's also Zoom classes. So like, let's say
Gotcha.
we're on this computer, there may be 20 people on it. So that's fun for them because they get to see each other. So after that, and I just forgot your question
Um,
because we have MS.
yeah, well, I want you to let me know if you recommend people to use other modalities, such
Gotcha.
as other modalities of exercise, such as Pilates, yoga, or Tai Chi, or whatever it might be.
So a lot of times people afterwards will tell me about their slow flow yoga. And so they'll invite me, like, would you want to do this, either on Zoom? So I'm always like, yes, let's do it. So I think it's important, like for me, I swim with my husband. So that's another thing that I do. So I will always say that I want to hear about the other things you're doing. And sometimes people get afraid if they're cheating on their trainer. And like, you're not cheating on me. You're moving, and I couldn't be more excited about it.
What did you say that you did with your husband?
Well, he fired me.
No, I thought you just said you swim with your husband.
I do. I swim with him, but I used to be his trainer.
Yeah, swimming this time of year. How do you do that in Michigan?
Well, we just do it at Lake Michigan.
Okay, at this time of year.
Yeah, haha. No,
Right.
we go inside and swim.
Gotcha. All right. So, what do you recommend for people? Let's talk about safe way to exercise. What is it that you recommend for people to exercise? Are there temperature controls? Are there time of length of doing something? Is there a certain time of day? Talk to me.
Okay, so that depends on each person because some people find the morning is their time. Some people find the morning, please don't talk to me, speak to me. They do better in the evening. For me, an evening workout would be a nightmare, but some people do much better in the evening. Some people do better in the afternoon. So it's really getting to know the clients you're working with and knowing where's their sweet spot. And then as far as like what they're going to do and things like that, it's learning what they like. It's really kind of like I said we talked about in the beginning with different patients. I don't like to use a lot of music because then it takes away from concentration. But I'm not opposed to putting on some fun music during different times to
Right.
kind of connect with what they enjoy, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Does it help with the beat and the rhythm and getting things going?
Absolutely. You
Okay.
got it.
All right. Tell me about where you came up with the words or the term MS disrupted.
Well, so when I opened up the gym and personal training years ago, what I did is a big game with all of my, remember I said I started running because, who doesn't run when you find out you have MS? That would be the best thing. You can't feel your feet. What do? I'm going to become a runner. So I didn't tell anybody, by the way, about that either. I started running with a group. Have you ever heard of like Meetup?
Yes.
Okay. So I didn't know, I'm just asking. So Meetup, they were teasing me because I had been divorced now from the pastor for a few years. And they were like, Mom, you have to go do something. So I'm like, fine. They're like, so you work at a gym, you are a manager, you're doing all this. So you did a workout program? I'm like, well, that's it. So I joined the running club. So I'm running. It takes me 2 months to finally tell them I have MS. They're like, why are you here? I'm like, I thought it'd be fun. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed being able to have that camaraderie with different people and being able to do the running and stuff like that. So that was a huge outlet for me to be able to do those things.
Well, that's good. So then you came up with MS disrupted.
So yeah, so disrupted was, so I needed you to put me back online because I'm like, I know we were going here for a reason. I have no idea what that was anymore. So what I did is I did a game because we had in that club, you had people all over, all different jobs, which I thought was really cool. I said, all right, here's the game. Whoever comes up, I need a word. Now, disrupt wasn't the big word it is now. I need a word for my training. Whoever gets it, you get 10 free sessions with me. So this couple got it, and I'm like, disrupt. Love it. I still love it. Think of all the things you can disrupt. I can disrupt what you think you can't do with MS. I can disrupt your views of MS news and views. I can disrupt your idea that you can't do something. I can disrupt your idea that you're always going to be in bed and sad. I can disrupt so many things. I love that word. So it has become my favorite word. So MS disrupted is disrupting MS. Let's go.
You can't do that to me. It doesn't work. I have an invisible shield around my body, and it doesn't allow anything in. Okay, and that's why I'm not getting worse.
I'm disrupting you.
Yeah, exactly. And tell us more about where you got the tagline, move it or lose it.
Well, move it or lose it. Gosh, that was a funny thing that my grandpa used to say to me when I was little. When I used to time to get up, he said, "Let's go, move it or lose it." And then it became such a thing when I found out I had MS. That was like the big move it or lose it. And I was like, my grandpa used to say that. So it was like, I have to do this. I have to call the podcast Move It or Lose It.
Gotcha. Going back on something, how are you able to monitor the people that participate in your online program to make sure that they're doing as you suggest or as you teach, and to avoid complication of somebody hurting themselves?
Well, yeah, that's tricky. So I'll share. Do I have time to share a quick story?
Yes.
Are you going to say 10 seconds? So
No, 20.
One of my clients that were in California, he had fallen down. And so on my Apple Watch, it's telling me he's calling me from there. I've fallen and I can't get up. I'm like, with another client, do I get a plane? What do I do? So I'm talking him through it. This is what you do. This is why we work upper body, not just legs. So he got himself to the bed and got himself up. So like, let's say I'm doing a Zoom class and you've got 20 people on and you see one go. So I just take him off the screen so nobody else sees it. I'm kidding. No, I help them. You just like totally didn't even see what I did. I don't just let them fall down.
Because I'm writing notes.
I don't allow them just to bite it. If they fall, I just simply say, first off, are you okay? Is there someone there with you? So some of the things I say in the very beginning, do you have a fan? Are you cool enough? Water, is there someone in the house with you? so that if something were to happen, also, do you have a chair, something to grab onto? And if there's a walker, please make sure it's locked, or the wheelchair, so that you don't grab onto and it doesn't fly away. So things like that.
Do you only do online classes, or do you have anything going at a gym somewhere?
Yeah, I have my studio here. So I also see there are people that live in this freezing state. And
Yeah,
so they do come in here as well.
it's only freezing part of the year, though.
Well, 9 months out of the year, yeah.
Back to your virtual classes. How many do you allow on there at a time?
No more than 20.
And that's why?
Just
That's
because
the reason why?
I want to see, it's always been, Stuart, since I started training. How can I say to you, good job, if I didn't see you?
Right.
I can't.
Or like saying, what did you just do with your hands, Stuart? Because, you were looking the other way. Yeah, well, I was writing a note so I don't forget. All right. So you're doing this online with about 20 people, and how many times a week are you doing these online classes?
The online classes are on Tuesdays. So right now I do 2 different classes on Tuesday. I do at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 7 p.m.
Okay, and I forgot my question. I was going to ask something about this. How many times a week are you doing this?
So just once a week right now. Then the other ones are my one-on-one. So I do the one-on-ones and then that.
So you mentioned 2 classes. Is there a beginner level and an intermediate and an advanced? You can't because you don't have enough days.
That's what I want to do with them, but they're so funny. They want to be together. So I'm like, what about if we separate it and do one seated and one standing? They're like, no, we're all together. So I'm like, okay. So I just show them this one we're going to do seated. This is the seated one. This is the standing. They just like more work for me. So I'm like, now if your legs don't come up, we're going to do this. If your arms don't come up, we're doing this. So I'm talking this fast so that I can get them, and now we're going to go.
Okay. Johnny two shits just comes along, all right, and wants to get into your class, but everybody else is very advanced already. How do you get Johnny up to speed?
Well, it's easy because Johnny's going to be great because he's going to have 5 more people that are just where he is.
Johnny.
Johnny is going to be great because there's about 5 different people that are just where he is.
Okay, but all right, sorry about this. You have one style of class. Some of the people are advanced, some aren't. And how are you doing enough during your virtual class to make it so that way the advanced are getting what they need versus those that are not?
So let's say you're my advanced person. So I may be saying, okay, you're going to do an assisted squat to the ones that are not. Then my advanced person, you're going to stand and do a regular squat. Feel free to add a little hop on that.
Gotcha.
Because you can.
Gotcha. And tell me, what do you consider? I mean, it's not what you consider, it's what you do. What is your squat? I mean, do you go from sitting to standing?
If they can, or I'll have them hold on to the chair and do the squat, like a half squat. So we'll go over different ways they can. Or if they're in the chair, they'll have their hands here, and I'll have them just squeeze their glutes, hardly come up and come down. So I go over different ways and constantly letting them know there's no right or wrong. The only wrong is not doing it, but it's where you are.
I bet that women could do more squats than men.
Oh, I bet you're right.
Every time you go to the bathroom during the day, it's a squat, right?
Yes, sir.
That's right. So
nobody's sitting on that seat.
So you could exactly. So it's easy to show somebody how to do a squat. All you have to do is go to the bathroom with them, right?
Exactly.
Right. Okay. All right. Next, a typical day that the typical start to your classes is what?
Typical start to a class would be, I hear people getting on, and then I come on to get on. I let them kind of chat a little bit because they like to do that, talk about their days, talk about what's going on. They'll get on a little bit early, and then I'll come on and I'll just say, okay, guys, so make sure you've got all your equipment, bands, water bottles, whatever it is that they're using, and we're going to get started. We're going to start stretching, and then we'll kind of go through a time of stretching. Then we'll go through a time of, we'll go through like arms, legs, things like that. And then we'll go through something kind of fun, and then we'll do stretching at the end. And then that's about it. They'll have a little bit of time to share something, and then we're done. And they're always laughing and giggling, and I can hardly get them off, honestly.
Okay. So when a person comes to your studio, how do you start them?
So studio, kind of the same. We'll start stretching, talking how their day was, how they're feeling. And from there, you can kind of tell, do we need a little bit more stretching? Do I need to do some breathing with them? Are they feeling a little bit, more anxious? So now, Stuart, they know that a Zoom class with 20 people is going to be less attention. So
Sure.
they do know that that's always offered to them. If they want one-on-one stuff, that they can do that and have more time with me. So they know
Gotcha.
that that's offered.
Gotcha. Why is it me? I'm sure many others. You go for physical therapy somewhere because you have something wrong with your body, and they make you
Yeah.
get on a freaking bike and pedal away for 10 minutes. and they have to tell me, oh, I need you to warm up. I said, but I have an ankle injury, and telling me to get on a bike is a very difficult thing.
Yeah, that is true. That does happen. I don't know. I don't know why they do that. That wouldn't be my thing. If I was going to warm up, I might do some stretches with your ankle, and then that might be something we do later.
Yeah. Do you have anybody get onto bounce balls, those big
Yes.
balls, and just rock back and forth,
Yeah.
and just to get warmed up and et cetera? I'm doing the Elvis here. Okay?
Oh yeah. And then do this forward, back. Oh yeah.
Right. More of Elvis. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So a person is asking a question. It's about that time, so I want to get into these.
Sure.
My strong side has always been my right side. Because of that, I'm leaning into the screen. It seems I keep injuring, falling, and breaking bones on that side. Is this a common occurrence for you to see in your practice?
So he's saying in the right side is the stronger side, and that's the one
Right.
he leans more towards.
In this case, she. Yes.
She. Now, so can you ask her, does she have a mobility aid?
I think she just, I don't think I have to ask her. You
So-
just did.
Okay, so I would want to know, do you have a mobility aid? And if so, sometimes we're leaning on that, on the weaker side too much. That sometimes hurts us. So sometimes I like to use the trekking poles because they help us to even out both sides. So I'm wondering if that could be one of the causes.
All right. Her answer is there is no aid.
No aid. Okay.
No aid.
So maybe try to, and we can even order these on Amazon, try the trekking poles to get strength in both sides. I wouldn't advise a cane. I would try the trekking poles.
So is that something that she should go out of the house with all the time and use?
I would try walking around, try walking outside, depending on where do you live?
It's TN, so I imagine that's Tennessee.
Okay, then we should be okay. I can't imagine it's that freezing right now in Tennessee.
Well, it depends. I guess in southern Tennessee it's fine, but if you get up into the into Pigeon Forge,
Right.
yeah, if walking around with
Yeah.
two big sticks, I mean, it's probably common. Just they're
Right.
going to tell you you're missing the skis, though.
Yeah, exactly. That would be my first suggestion. I wouldn't go up and down the hill, like the mountain with it right away, but that would be my first suggestion, is to use the trekking poles and see if that helps.
Okay, she just answered. Thank you for the great suggestion.
Absolutely.
So that's great. How often is too much time to be working out each day?
I would say feel your body. It's an hour, I think, is too much. Sometimes 45 minutes is. So listen to your body. When you feel like you're too exhausted, then it's too much. So with my clients, I usually do 45 minutes, but that all encompasses stretching before, stretching after. I would say be leery of if you're working with a trainer and they say an hour and it's all exercise. I would say they're trying to get a lot of money out of you and say no, thank you.
Okay, another person is asking about water aerobics. How much is too much, and what's the water temperature? What should that be all about?
So water aerobics with MS, temperature wise where you're comfortable. You don't want it to be too hot, obviously. And I would say water aerobics, probably the first thing I did. I guess we didn't go over that. It's a great, great way to gain strength, to get some cardiovascular in. And you don't really, I would say the biggest thing I would caution, make sure you're getting enough water, because you don't know how much you're exerting yourself when you're in the water. So afterwards, make sure you're drinking enough prior and then afterwards as well. So important that you're getting enough water, but a great, great way to strengthen your body and to get cardio in. A great way.
Okay, for the person that's unable to walk, let alone run, what do they do for cardio?
Water. I would say water aerobics.
What if that's not available to them?
Well, there should be a chair that you can go in the water aerobics.
No, but I'm saying not water aerobics in general.
Okay.
In general, let's forget water aerobics for a moment. A person that cannot, a person is online with you. They want to do cardio, but they cannot walk, and therefore they definitely cannot run. Okay. So what do you suggest for the person whose legs are not working?
For cardio? So one of the things that we do for cardio is battle ropes. So battle ropes that are not too, have you ever seen battle ropes? So I could get them, but they're kind of far. So they're thick ropes. And what we do with those, I'll have them sitting in their chair and they'll do these, or they'll go like this. That gets cardio in. Another thing that they do is I'll have them act like they're running, but in the chair. So they'll do marching like this, and it gets the heart rate up, or just punches. So if you do this, Stuart, just do that.
Right.
But I'll time 30 seconds with them, and that's cardio up, heart rate up.
What about light weights, like using a 1 pound or a half pound dumbbell? Okay, great.
We can do bands, light weights, but all of those things. If you think you can't get your heart rate up in a chair, you got to come with me.
Okay. Leads us to the next thing, because we are now like out of time, so I'm just going to wind things down now. And what can you tell us about your website, where people can find you, and et cetera?
Sure. The website is msdisrupted.com. Or if you go on social media, you can go on to Instagram at msdisrupted, and you can find me on the website, and you can go into the classes and you can sign up one-on-one, or you can sign up and actually the first Zoom is free. So we made it that way so that it's not scary. So you can go on and finally see it and say, this isn't nearly as scary as I thought it would be.
Right. So you just said you mentioned about free versus not free. If a person really wants to work out with you, but they don't have a lot of money, what do they do? So
like I said, the first Zoom is free. And then after that, it's not very expensive at all to do the Zooms. Working out with me, so what I've had is kind of some neat things. So some of the programs, some of the people are doing some scholarships so that people can get scholarshiped in. So that's been some of the things I've been fighting for, is to get some scholarships. So really, truly, like, I know what it's like to be a single parent. I know what it's like to struggle, so that those people that really want to get into a program can get in. So I've been able to lower prices for people, but now I'm actually getting help from some of the other societies and things like that we can scholarship them in.
Okay, gotcha. All right. What else do you want to say? I don't have any other questions for you. I'm all timed out. I got 30 seconds. That's what you've got.
Thank you. I thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It was great to finally be with you and meet you. And you're not nearly as scary as I was warned.
That's good. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to catch up with you again in a little while. People are writing in. Thank you very much for this program, and I want to thank you as well. I look forward to having you again on here. We'll do that sometime over the summer. Okay. And maybe we'll get some props, set up with you so we can do things online. All right.
Sounds perfect.
Awesome. Have a wonderful day, everybody that's online. Thank you very much. Take care and have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.